Automotive HVAC Pressure Diagnostics. Pressure analysis diagnostics is the cornerstone of properly doing a climate control system assessment. As we all know, the HVAC systems is composed of a high and a low pressure side. The orifice tube or expansion valve is the one component in between these two refrigerant conduits. The compressor, of course, is the one in charge of pressurizing the refrigerant. Pressure analysis is by far the best, and probably in many cases, the only way to properly diagnose the dozens of specific issues with the automotive HVAC system. But first, here are the various scenarios relating to pressure analysis. Before we go into it, it is important to understand what the baseline pressure should be. The normal HVAC baseline is about 39 psi on the low side, and about 250 psi on the high side. How far away we divide from this baseline is what's going to determine our issue. Here are the different analysis scenarios. Case 1. High pressure on the low side and baseline pressure on the high side. This may translate to, say, about 125 psi on the low and 250 on the high side. And what can we ascertain from these readings? Actually quite a bit. We'll begin by starting our climate control troubleshooter software. This is a cutting-edge HVAC analysis tool that'll make our job of explaining a lot easier. After starting the analysis software, we choose our vehicle, in this case a hypothetical Dodge. Then, we choose from the tabs above. In this case, the pressure analysis. There are other software section as well. We are then alerted to use the up and down buttons to set the HVAC gauges, and then press Analyze for the results. We now set the high pressure gauge to about 250 psi. We then set the low pressure gauge to about 125 psi. Then we hit Analyze. Here's what the climate control troubleshooter says. The expansion valve, by the evaporator, or the orifice tube, located at the high side entrance to the evaporator, is faulty. The pressure indicates a stuck open expansion valve, or perforated orifice tube. Here's why the suspect is the metering device, which we call either the orifice tube, or expansion valve. The compressor generates the refrigerant pressure needed by the HVAC system. Seen here, once the refrigerant reaches the orifice tube or expansion valve, it changes state due to the restriction. But in this case, the restriction has broken, or its aperture is bigger than expected. The result is a balancing of pressure between the high and low side. This issue is common regarding the expansion valve, but less so on orifice tube systems. Case 2. Very high pressure on the high side, or higher than normal, and low baseline pressure on the low side. This may translate to 30 psi on the low, and 350 psi on the high side. So, how can we determine from these readings? Going back to our climate control troubleshooter, we first reset the gauges, and now set our gauges accordingly, with the high side at 350 psi and the low side at 30 psi. Then we hit the Analyze button. Here's what the climate control troubleshooter says. The AC expansion valve or orifice tube is clogged. Do not operate the AC system at such high pressures. Once the system refrigerant is removed, do a thorough cleaning or replace the metering device. Now why do we come to this conclusion? It is simple. A clogged metering device, like the expansion valve, or orifice tube, will in effect make the pressure go up, and lower the low side as well. This is the classical symptom of a clog in the system. Anytime the low side goes below baseline, but with higher than normal pressures, look for a clog in the pipes. Case 3. Lower than baseline pressure on both the low and high side. This may translate into 200 psi on the high side, and 30 psi on the low side. Then we hit analyze. Here's what the software says. You're low on refrigerant. Perform a full recovery, and charge the system according to proper specs. The system pressures on both sides is low, due to less refrigerant being pumped in the system. This is by far the biggest issue seen on all automotive HVAC systems. It is also fairly simple to understand. In the event that the pressures are low across the board, a low charge is the only possibility. Even a weak compressor will tend to keep the low side higher, due to lack of pumping ability. And a full recover and recharge should always be done to rule out the compressor in this case. As you can see, the ability to analyze a climate control pressure settings is instrumental in diagnosing the system. A form of analysis software, as seen here, is also desirable at first, and even just to double-check your own mental results of the situation. In all cases, knowledge of automotive HVAC in practice makes perfect.